We have two very talented guests. Tobey Wyatt, she has over 20 years experience across various industries. She founded Motherlode, focusing on executive advisory for ambitious, often neurodivergent leaders. And Robyn is also here. And Robyn is the founder and CEO of Talent Ascend. Their mission is to be the beacon of skills-based hiring, changing the way small businesses make hiring decisions with impactful connections to underserved and untapped talent through a proven skills-based approach to talent sourcing. All right, so you guys, we're very excited. We have Tobey and Robyn, super talented, and Tom and I are also here, not as talented.
That's right. Yeah. There's always got to be a pecking order, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're here to make you guys look good. I think that won't be a problem. So a lot of it, we talked, a little bit about hiring and for skills versus tactics, and the overall processes for HR. The front end, recruitment, back end. Now, as a business owner, it's a bunch of our audience is business owners. We feel we're pretty talented guys. We don't understand why I just can't go to AI, create a job description, throw it up by Indeed, and then I can handle it. So explain to me, Robyn, why we should hire, or what Talent Ascend, and why we should bring Tobey in as well. I don't understand why I'm hiring for skills versus tasks, and why I need an HR process.
Yeah, great question. So really, it comes down to quality, time, and costs. When you think about the quality of candidates that you want to bring into your business, Zig Ziglar said, you don't build a business, you build people, and people build your business. They're your greatest asset. So you want quality. A skills-based process will get you quality candidates because you're identifying the skills that your business needs, not just the tasks or the jobs that you need done, but the skills across your organization. Time. What small business owner has the time to take away from growing their business to wade through a bunch of unqualified applicants, not really knowing what they're looking for, not really understanding how to interview? It's not their core competency. And meanwhile, that seat stays empty longer, which costs your business money. And you're not focusing on what you're doing as a business owner. And then you've got the costs of putting a job out on a job board, one job at a time, very costly, wading through all of the stuff that comes out of that job board. Again, a business owner's time. So when you think about a skills-based process, it really is encompassed in quality candidates, saving you time and getting that seat filled faster with a quality candidate, and the cost associated with either hanging it on the job board, those tangible costs, but your time is very valuable and you've got to factor that in.
So on a rough estimate, if I make a bad hire, what's the cost to me on that?
Well, the average turnover cost around $10,000 to $15,000, and you probably say, well, it didn't even cost me that much to hire somebody. Yes, it did. When you think about all the costs, it's not just creating letting AI create a job description and hoping it captures exactly what your company needs. Throwing it out on the job board, waiting for all those applications to come in with just the best quality candidates out there, and you're just going to go through them really quickly, and then you're going to have to chase them down, then you're going to have to get them on the phone, and then you're going to find out they don't have the skills you need, they want more money than you're looking for, or they don't even respond. Now you got to start all over again. All of that cost money. So that's just the kind of the beginning part. Then you've got your onboarding process, which Tobey will talk a lot about. The foundation of that, taking a new hire through that process, getting them trained, getting them acclimated to your business. Somebody's doing that. And while they're doing that, they're taking away from time that they're doing other things in your business. Again, time, to quote a line from Top Gun, time is your greatest adversary. It's worth so much, especially in a small business, when you don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of money and a lot of resources. So it really comes down to, could you do this? Will it take you exponentially more time? I think you could look at it from really any perspective on any business segment. Can I do the marketing for my company by myself? Sure. Am I going to get the results I truly need to grow my business? Probably not, because marketing's not my core competency. So you got to think about it in terms of not just the hard cost, but the time and leaving that seat empty longer. That work is still needs to get done, or it's not getting done and it's hurting your business.
So Toby, explain to me how is front end planning going to help me reduce my exposure and my risk?
Yeah, so if you don't plan for the roles properly, and there's a lot that goes into planning what a role is, then you are setting up the process however you cost it. So if you're going to run it yourself, you're setting up all that time and expense of doing the hire. Really, that the major cost comes from the expense of time, the loss of time. And so you're losing all of that for a hire that may just turn out badly. And then you're going to spend another $15,000 in hiring the next one. And if you don't figure out what happened in between the two, because you're never doing the planning prior to hiring, you're just going to get in a perpetual cycle and believe that it's just, there's no good talent out there. And that's when people start to throw up their hands and believe that it's just a lost cause and they just have to deal with subpar performance. And you can also, on the back end, find that you could have hired actually a very great candidate. And if you didn't do the planning properly, they don't have a company or a role to come into to be productive. And you may lose that really great candidate because they can't get engaged at the level that they want to be there.
Yeah, if you think about it, Adam, it's really like building a house. We talked about this the other day, right? It's really about building that foundation of the house. If you don't get that right to begin with, the first person that walks in, that's going to crumble. So you can't have a really quality candidate walk into a crumbling house and try to be successful. It just won't work. So you've got to do that foundational planning piece and be ready for those people to walk into your business.
So Toby, is the interview planning process part of the front end planning? Tell me a little bit about that.
Can be. It depends how you're going to handle the recruiting process. So
Okay.
if you are going to keep it in-house 100%, you've really got to evaluate what it is you're wanting to assess for and then figure out how to create an interview to do that. I think we all sort of just believe we know how to interview because we've been in interviews. And we've all been in really crappy interviews before. So it's really not a good tool to use what you've experienced before to decide that that's how I'm going to run an interview. And so often we think we are assessing we ask a question or we give an assignment and we believe we're assessing a detail orientation or we believe we're assessing certain knowledge on certain things. But what you're actually assessing is something completely different, their ability to perform under pressure, which may be a really great thing to assess. But if you believe you're assessing something else, you're not getting the right information that you were looking for. So you've got to build your whole interview process. If you're going to do it in-house or partner with and do the interview process with a company, you've really got to lay that out so that you are creating interview questions, you're creating interview structures, panels versus singles, assignments or requests that you're going to make, writing components, that you're building them properly to assess them. But the great thing is if you are going to bring in somebody to help you with the recruiting element, they have the great skill set. So you can really shorten that planning time by leaning on their knowledge.
I'd love to hear what Toby and Robyn have to say about this, but I think it's, I've had a couple small businesses of my own, right? And then interact with a lot of other small business owners, which is vastly different than the mid-market and the enterprise space, right? But small businesses end up, I know I had this issue myself, was that it's very reactionary when you need people. It's usually because of growth and that you can't handle it anymore. So you need somebody fast, but you don't exactly know what you need. And therefore, even like something so simple as like the job description is very ambiguous and it sets it up for failure. Either you're making the job description too transactional and it leaves no room for promotion and growth, and therefore you get like people that really don't have a lot of long-term value, or the other issue that I had was the job description was so loose that people were coming in and you were paying them as like a normal employee, but expecting that they were like a partner in your business. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult to manage as a small business, and almost every single time ends up in disaster. So like, love having this conversation, would love to hear both of your perspectives from the operations side as well as the recruiting side, you know, how specifically the small business owner thinks past that reactionary state, despite the fact that almost everybody lives in that like reality.
So I certainly have a lot to say in the operational front, but I do think it would be really valuable to start with, Robyn, you explaining why it's so beneficial to have tasks built, job descriptions versus, or excuse me, I said that backwards, skills-based job descriptions versus task-based, which is what we are commonly seeing. And then I can back up from there and explain how you can get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, you know, we learned some bad habits from those enterprise companies, because that's typically where we've learned about hiring, right? We've worked for a bigger company, we've worked for a mid-market company, and the resources those companies have to write job descriptions for you, it's already done for you. Interviews are already done for you. And as the hiring manager, you're just coming in at the back end. So as a small business owner, great quote is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So it's really about taking a look at, you know, if you put a product out in the market, you're not just going to throw it out there without some planning, right? You're going to know that the product works. You're going to know that you have a marketing plan. You've got all those steps planned out. You have to take the same approach to bringing on your greatest asset in your business. You've got to sit down and plan for that action. Write those job descriptions from a skills perspective, especially if it's going to be your first couple of hires, because you're going to need somebody that wears multiple hats. You're going to need somebody that can come in, not necessarily be your partner, but certainly be a jack of all trades for the most part, right? I need you to do this today, when tomorrow we're going to be doing this, or we've got to pivot the business and now I need
especially
this.
with small businesses, right?
Exactly.
By definition, that's going to happen. Right.
Absolutely. So if you look at it from a skills perspective and you know what skills you need somebody that can run logistics, you need somebody that has operational planning, you need somebody that can think strategically. Those are the skills you want to bring into your business. And then you can write the tasks that you need done, just so that as you're in the interview, you can go over the type of work that the person will be doing, but you're looking for the skills that somebody can bring to your organization very quickly and be able to pivot with you, be able to navigate challenges and changes, as small businesses have to be very fluid. You want people that can be very fluid. The other part about recognizing those skills is you can recognize them anywhere you go. So if you know you need somebody that's a great planner or great at customer service, you could be out at a restaurant and meet somebody with those skills, but you don't see them demonstrating the actual task you've got in mind. You just see the skills they're demonstrating anywhere. It makes it much easier for you to identify the talent as you go. So,
and Robyn, how do you feel like the personality tests, like the Myers-Briggs, the DISC assessments? What role, if any, do you see those in recruiting for the skills?
I'm not a big fan of assessments. I've been in HR a long time. I'm not a big fan of them for a couple of reasons. One, neurodivergent people think tests, they think assessments are tests. So me in particular, I'll speak for myself and anyone else who agrees with me, but I look at a test and I'm like, what answer do you want me to give? So now I'm thinking I'm trying to answer it like I think you want me to answer it, not who I really am. What I think those assessments are good for is communication tools. Because if you know that my communication style is XYZ, and I love visual learning, I love emails because I can answer it whenever I need to, versus I need long drawn out explanations. Give me the whole, you know, I often say, I ask my husband what time it is, and he tells me how to build a watch. And I don't need to know how to build the watch. I just need to know what time it is. So I think those assessments are good for tools in communication and learning styles and things like that. Not so much to put me in a box that my personality is this.
Yeah. Tobey, how would how do you address this issue, right? I mean, I always go by like for small businesses, like the 90-180 flip, and people call it different things. But like for most small businesses, like it goes like this, right? You got 90 days to get your act together, right? And 180 days till I run out of money for your position. And I think it's probably pretty fair, right? In that, like, if somebody doesn't have like the clear instructions on both sides, meaning the employee and the employer, that if you waste a week, a few weeks, and digs into that time, unfortunately, you can lose some really good talent, right? Or let this linger on longer than it needs to and start wasting a lot of time and money for the company. So from operations standpoint, how do you look at this like sort of like 90-180 flip so that you can like really understand from both perspectives? We aren't an enterprise level company and don't have a wave to just let you learn how to surf forever until you start learning how to catch waves. You know what I mean? How do you address that issue for a small company?
Yeah, I think the problem is that I don't think most small business owners understand how early that process to be able to do that well starts. And it starts well before you even hire somebody. And it's did you do your company strategic planning, right? Do you know where your company is headed? And then if you know where your company is headed, you know what roles you need in order to achieve the goals you have as a company, which is where you start to build your skills assessment. Hey, we have got to do marketing and we've got to do sales. So I need to find somebody who can do both instead of finding a specialist in sales or a specialist in marketing, right? And that's happening all across the board. And so you have to know what the metrics for your company are. And a lot of small businesses, they are just flying by the seat of their pants because they are overwhelmed, they are overtaxed, and they're trying to do it all, right? You've got these people, the CEOs who feel like they're just holding it together as it is. So to lift yourself up and out of that in order to be able to do strategic planning, sure, they might know like, I want to grow my business 2x, right? That's about as deep as some business owners go. You've got to get deeper. You really need to know what is it that I want to achieve in what sort of time frames. Then you can figure out what skills do I need that I don't have to get there. Then you can divide that skill need into the various roles that it might be well suited for. So sales and marketing would go nicely together. Operations and HR often go nicely together, right? So you can figure out what buckets of a role you might need. Then you figure out, okay, so I need these skills and I'm going to call it this role. What are the metrics for the role? And very, very rarely have I seen companies that have preparation to the level of understanding the metrics that they are going to hold that person accountable for prior to the hire, especially if it's for a new role that's never existed before.
Like, for example,
And
excuse me. So Tom mentioned earlier, he says, okay, he hit his company hit a growth spurt and now he's in reaction mode and he's trying to hire someone, versus you're saying if you had a strategic plan and you were planning at this revenue level, you're going to need to pull these people in.
Absolutely. Being able to have trigger points where you're not behind the game and you can say, okay, because at this trigger point, when I hit this revenue mark or when we have this number of clients, it depends what's triggering work and what's triggering the need for the additional person and role in the first place. But you should have trigger points in your company metrics that let you know this is the point we have got to get started on this process or we're already behind the game. And then so what happens is if you do that properly, if you build the metrics for the company and for the role prior to the hire, then you can build a 30, 60, 90-day plan that really gets that person onboarded well. 30 days, really all you should be doing for most roles, many roles, is observing, listening, learning, a lot of non-active stuff. They could maybe take care of some low-hanging fruit, but you've got to give time for the absorption of the amount of material necessary to be productive. Then in 60 and 90 days, you're progressively getting closer and closer to what you really expect their day and whatever to look like. And one of the really interesting things about building a task-based job description, if you hire good people, those aren't the tasks that person should be doing 90 days in or 180 days in, because they're so good that they've actually made it a totally different set of tasks because they've made those more efficient or they have systematized those or anything like that. So again, you find the skills. Yes. And if you build the metrics, then you already have your performance management built in. You know what you're going to hold people accountable for. It can always change. I think people expect this magical 1 year mark to be this like, in a year, we're going to assess all these things and we don't have to revisit until then. No, sometimes those are 1 month metrics. Sometimes those are 6 month metrics. Sometimes those are 5 year metrics, right? And so you've really got to understand what's possible in one amount of time and then hold people accountable to that.
Love that. Yeah.
Excellent.
Robyn, help me with this as well, right? So like, I think that I've heard this notion plenty of times and I've already seen it myself firsthand as well, is that for small businesses, the better you can bring somebody into your team, whatever that job description is going to be or skill set, the more that they can think of themselves as how I can apply as a profit center, the better, right? No matter what they are, but what is my role in the company and how does it affect the bottom line? And if people enter a small business with that mentality, no matter what they sit, their seat is, the more likely they will have success. So how do you sort of like address that issue on the front end so that you're not getting people that, let's say, are used to working for mid-market or enterprise and used to things, I'm going to say this nicely, but you know where I'm going. I hope I don't offend anyone, but handed certain luxuries because of that additional resources. Where small business, you really got to be ready to roll up your sleeves and grind, and it's a different mentality.
Absolutely. And that really starts with that planning process. You can't sit down to an interview or even look for a candidate to bring into your business until you know all of those things, until you know what you're going to expect out of someone. And it's truly, and it can be frustrating for a business owner because like you said, you're under the gun, you're running, you just need to hire somebody. But if you don't, again, build that foundation and take the time and to sit down and say, this is what I need from someone. These are the expectations I'm going to set with someone. These are the metrics I'm going to hold them accountable to. And then during that conversation, during those interviews with people, that's the skills you're looking for. You'll find that person with the skills. Now you're going to sit down in the interview and set those expectations. We're a small business. We run lean. We have very few resources. We need you to do XYZ in 30 days. Does that sound like a purpose you can get behind? A lot of times when you do skills-based hiring too, you're tapping into the military, you're tapping into veterans, military spouses, the disability community, the justice-involved community. Those are great candidates for small businesses because they want to have purpose. And a small business gives them a purpose. It gives them the opportunity to come in and say, whatever you need me to do to help you grow this, I'm here. Just tell me what you need. You can't expect someone to know what's in your mind and run first day without you telling them, this is where I want our company to grow. I want to grow $20,000 in revenue in the next 30 days. This is how I think we can get there. This is how you can help me.
And more importantly, this is your role in helping us get there. This is why you're so strategic to our growth.
Exactly. So, if you don't set the expectations and the foundation, people will find things to do and they will find ways to do things. But is it exactly how you want it done for your business? Is that the representation? So you need to set that stage. You need to let them know exactly what your expectations are and how you're going to hold them accountable to those expectations.
I've got a buddy of mine that like has done really well with recruiting just alone for his own company, and like for both male and female, like specifically like looks at college athletes that have sports that are notorious for grinding, right? Like for instance, wrestling or something like of that sort, where they're used to just hard work. What do you guys think about like looking at it from that perspective?
Well, again, it's all about the skills, right? What skills have they acquired in that teamwork or in that specific sport? So look for, and maybe you can find people that have those skills and have that mindset that haven't done wrestling, but have done something else, have been in the military or have been a military spouse, right? So I think it comes down to that's really the perfect definition of skills-based hiring. Find out the kind of people and the kind of skills you want for your business, and then look for the people to fulfill that.
Yeah, and to be clear, right, athletics is not it. I mean, like it could be something so fantastic as like looking at somebody that has like really become a master at the piano, right? Like think about the hours of grind that they literally have to do to
Absolutely.
like get very good at that,
It's
right?
the
Like
mindset and the discipline.
Yeah.
it shows true grit, right?
Yeah.
Always interesting at looking at like when hiring and like looking for folks and interviewing, like what have they done before today? And not just necessarily like their work experience, but who are you as a human? Like
Right.
as an actual individual,
Yes.
tell me a little bit about how you like came up the ranks since birth. Like tell me a little bit about what your life was like, because I think that's drastically different. Again, small business versus other companies, and on top of it, exactly the type of position that you're looking for, you know?
But I think where people go wrong though is in saying I need to fill a mechanic role. So I need somebody who's been a mechanic for 5 years.
Mm,
Flat out saying I just need somebody that's been a mechanic for 5 years, instead of saying what skills do you think that person would have acquired in those 5 years of being a mechanic, and look for
mm,
the skills. Because just because I've done something for 5 years, it doesn't make me good at it. Doesn't mean I
Mhm.
have the skills you need for your business.
mm. Yeah, love that.
Excellent. Toby, we only got a few minutes left, and I think can you share some of the metrics that you were going to show us a few things?
Sure. I wanted to add on to a point while I'm pulling this up.
Sure.
Oh, if you, there we go, can allow me to share. One of the things that's really interesting that I coach a lot of my clients on is the level of transparency to be providing. And so Robyn said several really good things about this is how you share expectations early and often. And so there's several things that a lot of the clients I work with really struggle about being transparent about. And it's being transparent about what expectations you really have. Don't worry about scaring candidates away. There's people who want all sorts of different things. So, don't hide the reality of the situation behind the scenes and just be like, well, I'll hire someone good and we'll deal with the consequences later. That's a horrible way to go about it. You want someone who's actually excited about whatever that reality is. And there are people out there to do that. The other side of that is the interview process doesn't need to stop at hire. And so I communicate, these are the consequences of not reaching goals on time. We are going to have a 30, 60, 90-day plan. We do reviews every month. And if you do not meet goals, these are the kinds of consequences we employ. And if they're not okay with that because they came from corporate and you can just skate along for forever, then they're not your person, right? So you're not going to scare off the right person. So just being really transparent, more transparent than I think with being.
Yeah,
So,
and the faster you find, sorry, Toby, the faster you
yep,
find that out, the better for both you and the person as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to demonstrate that I think the 4 metrics were really complicated to do. Metrics are hard. They seem easy on their face, but actually building a good metric is really hard. But AI is actually so helpful in this space. So if you've done any sort of planning, even if it's just that like horrible level of like, I want to 2x my business next year, right? Like that's not great strategic planning, but sure, we'll take it. You can throw something like that into AI and then say, I need these skills or I need this role, right? So I did this example already, basically of saying, give me one company metric, and I didn't even give it any parameters, right? So it just spit out a random company metric that we could hold a company accountable for. And then give me a role, the metrics associated with it for an administrative assistant position or a VP of sales, 2 totally different positions, right? And so you can use this over and over and over again, and you can just throw spaghetti at the wall in AI until you get to something where you're like, whoa, yes. And you can hone in and hone in and hone in until you realize, like, if somebody could do that in my organization, holy cow, we'd be in a totally different place next year. So you can just see, for example, here that the company metric that AI happened to pick for us was we want to have 15% year over year increase in revenue growth, right? That seems kind of small. And so then it gave me 2 metrics for improving meeting times, and reducing some meeting times and improving our file structure so that people aren't doing so well. And these sort of look like detailed and good goals, right? The VP of operations, there's percentages in here. They seem kind of good. But when I read them, I said, these really aren't complete SMART goals. These are not full, complete metrics. So all I have to do is tell AI, hey, make sure they're SMART goals. Can you try that again and actually improve upon these metrics? And then it was able to give me much more detailed, much more clear. Now, from what Robyn is saying, if I want an administrative assistant that can improve my meeting times and increase the document retrieval or reduce the document retrieval time, I need somebody that has the skills necessary to do that. That's not just any old administrative assistant. So again, what skills do you need in order to be able to do that? The only other thing I would say with metrics is some people get to this like, oh, I can do metrics now, and then they create like 30. Great. And nobody's ever going to be able to deal with that. So the rule should be 3, no more than 5, right? You should have some variety. You should have some flair. They need to be big enough deals. And again, if they were to accomplish this in month 1, shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be asking for that in month 1. But if they were, then you move on to new metrics and new goals, right? You throw new spaghetti at your tool and get it to spit out some better goals.
All right, very good. Oh, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time. This has been fantastic. So some of my key takeaways were as a business owner, you want to make sure you have a strategic growth plan, and then you want to identify what the triggers are going to be that you're going to need more staff. And then how does that incoming hire help you achieve your growth and effectively communicate to that potential hire, this is how important and strategic you are, and this is how you're going to help the organization move forward. And that this should all be based around skills, because by definition, our organizations are growing and changing, and what you hired them to do 90 days ago, the role could change into something differently. So therefore, you need to have someone with the skill set that's going to be flexible and be able to have the grit and the grind and having the mentality that I'm going to make this happen.
I think my takeaway, if I could just add anything to what Adam just said, was no matter how hard it is as a business owner, you must find time to plan. And that's what I got out of Robyn and Tobey. Really understand what this position means to the company and plan for it properly, not just so that the company succeeds, but so does the employee. So I love the input of both of the perspectives, and hopefully it helps some other people out that are going to listen to this, because this is hard as a small business owner. It really is.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Tom, like it does feel overwhelming, and it's because usually the CEO retains too many things for far too long. And this is one of the very few things that you cannot just not do, right? This is part of the role of CEO that has to be done. So many other things that you can do in the role of CEO are givables, right? They are things you could either delegate or stop doing or whatever. This is something that has to be a priority.
And if you don't get it right, it will break your company, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you both. I really
This was
appreciate
fantastic.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Adam, how are we getting all of the information out for both Robyn and Tobey, so that if anyone's listening, they can connect with Robyn and Tobey if this is something that they would need?
Super. Yeah. So Tobey, if you give us your best way to reach you, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. So the 2 best ways to reach me are on LinkedIn. Tobey Wyatt's a pretty unique name, so if you type me in, you're going to find me on LinkedIn. And so feel free to connect and message me there. But otherwise, you can also book my services directly on my website, www.motherlode, motherlode.biz, B-I-Z.
Excellent. And how about you, Robyn? Best way to
And
reach
for
you?
me, QR code there behind me, that goes right to our website. So you'll find all our information there. I'm also on LinkedIn. Love to connect with anyone just so I can help in any way that I can. talentsascend.com. My name is Robyn with a Y, so Robyn J. Grable on LinkedIn, but the QR code will get you right to us.
Okay.
Outstanding.
Well, thank you both. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.